Don't you think you're being a little oversensitive? No, only in response to the sensitivity of people like Jake. People like Jake are very performatively sensitive and woke. So if we're going to play in the woke pond, I can do it better. Oh, for those of you who don't know who ActualJake is like a smallish YouTuber slash live streamer slash whatever. He's got almost 30K on YouTube. He is most famous for way back in the day, for all of my boomers in chat. Way back in the day, he debated Destiny on the Hippy Dippy on if Destiny is like uniquely toxic, and he like quite literally like got a new orifice created out of that conversation. It was fucking embarrassing. That's probably his claim to fame, I would say, would be his debate with Destiny that went just painfully awry. It's an interesting conversation if you guys want to listen to it. So this is Jake's YouTube. We'll take a little peek over here. We'll pop over here really quick. So this is Jake's YouTube. You can see that he dresses like a corn on the cob. I don't really know why. I don't know what that's about. He doesn't do it in every stream, but he often dresses like a corn on the cob. We've got, you know, just basic like commentary shit, Helldivers, you know, guns, Pearl, just like basic like left tube shit, you know, like nothing really exciting and new. We're not really bringing anything unique. And then yeah, like we wear the corn suit. I don't really know. I don't know. I'm not quite sure what the corn suit is necessarily about, but yeah. So this is ActualJake. Okay, so ActualJake is a fucking idiot, and confidently I will say a transphobe. Now ActualJake is one of those cis guys that like really gets his dick hard from being like trans rights, and when he means trans rights, he means trans rights in the sense of like, I just tweet about it and I like know a trans person. That's pretty much it. His trans takes are just like so fucking bad, bro. So bad. Like I said, one of the most notable is that he had said that, you know, trans medicalism and Nazism were like, they were like the same thing. They were like adjacent. Yes, I know. Unbelievable. A dumb person on the internet. Who would have known? Yes, virtue signaling is a very good way to put it. So anyway, I was minding my own business on Twitter today, if you can believe it. I was minding my own business. Okay, I really, truly was. I was just, you know, like, worse than Xander Hall. Let's be very clear. But, you know, I was minding my own business. I was just kind of, you know, beeping around, looking at my silly little rave videos, you know, watching the 27 home improvements that you have to know about. Like, you know, minding my business, guys. Truly. And it's just like, jumped out and assaulted me, okay? It just jumped out and assaulted me, okay? So, this is where we begin. So, Poe's Law. For those of you who are unaware, right now there is a big discourse going on. There's a big discourse going on between if you are a woman and you're alone in the woods, would you rather be alone in the woods with a man or with a bear? Okay, and a lot of women are choosing bears because men, you know, exasperated men. You know, I can't blame them. I've seen Wrong Turn. I know what kind of men lurk in the woods. Personally, I am more afraid of men in the woods. Only because the kind of men that lurk in the woods are men that wear other men's faces as masks. And that's not the kind of man that I want to be around. Okay, if it was like Mark Zuckerberg, okay, I'll be in the woods with Mark Zuckerberg. But other than that, you know, I'm imagining like Leatherface in the woods with me. All right? I would definitely pick bear. Personally. I know the kind of men that hang out in the woods. That is where this discourse began, okay, is the bear versus man memes. And the bear, I've asked many times, the bear is almost never on cocaine. So you don't have to worry about that. It's not cocaine bear, okay? Anyway, anywhooser, we scooch over here. And so Poe's Law writes, reading accounts about how FTMs feel as a man, are really kind of funny because they usually stop thinking about these things when you're used to them. So basically the sentiment is like, trans men kind of bring this unique, like fresh perspective on the way that men are treated in society, because this is like a new thing for trans men, right? Like usually you're transitioning later in life, right? So you have to re-socialize, you have to readjust to living life as a man, essentially. And so there are a lot of unique challenges that come with that. And something that I have noticed time and time again is a lot of people mistakenly assume that trans men, there's no social like learning curve, there's no adjustment, there's no anything because you're inherently transitioning to a place of privilege, manhood. And that's simply not the case. So we have here some screenshots from Reddit. And so this is from FTM Venting. And so this person says, the bear versus man thing is damaging my mental health. I hate how I went from being treated well and being valued when I passed as a woman, but now I'm being treated as a threat to the point that people would rather choose a wild animal than a human being. It's actually crazy to me that there is no respect, and they talk like men are not people. Okay. Another one is, this is the reality shock that most people don't realize. When presenting as a man and walking anywhere alone, even if you look safe, clean cut, happy, when you enter a woman's field of vision for the first time, they will visibly flinch and tighten up. This happens again and again and again every single day for your entire adult life. I'm not going to read all that, but that's the gist. And then this one says, sorry, dude, trends like this come all the time. Hashtag kill on men was a trend a while back. More like it will pop up in the future. If it's damaging to your mental health, it's best to just stay off of Twitter, blah, blah, blah. And this person says, exactly, it doesn't hurt the violent men. They literally don't care. It hurts men who are just trying to exist. So to your novel reader, this comes off as like MRA bullshit, right? And the reality is that there's a nugget of truth in that, right? Like, not all men is kind of like cringe and reactionary, and not a lot of people are fond of it. However, on the left specifically, there is this overwhelming anti-man hate, okay? And again, for trans men specifically, coming from somebody who, you know, you live a lot of your life as a woman, you're perceived as a woman, you're treated as a woman, and then to transition and be perceived in an entirely different way, completely resocialize yourself and kind of adjust to no longer being seen as safe, as somebody who's trustworthy, all of these things can be really disheartening and they can be really jarring. And like I said, there's just this horrible anti-man like knee-jerk reaction on the left, and it's so cancerous and it's so toxic, and it's especially toxic to trans men, right? And I'm not saying trans men are built different or whatever, but if we're being real, and we know the rates of sexual assault in the trans community, and we know that trans men have the highest rates of sexual assault in the trans community, we know that a lot of these people are coming from the perspective of like not only being victimized as women by men, but now living in the role of a man, being perceived as a man, treated as a man, moving through the world as a man, and then having to readjust to, instead of being like a victim, essentially being perceived as the predator at all times. So this is a learning curve, and it's true of people that transition. You kind of have to re-socialize yourself. Well, let's see what our big brain king has to say. But before we get to our big brain king, this is the next take that we have here. So David says, honestly, I think men who aren't hurt by it are just suppressing the feelings and are weaker people for it. It's a lack of self-respect you're conditioned to have, and I don't know, it seems like a bitch move to sit down and take it. And while this is, you know, kind of a little tongue-in-cheek and maybe worded a little aggressively, I think the sentiment is true. The rhetoric of man bad has gone way too fucking far. It's gone way too fucking far. I saw the other day somebody quote that 9 out of 10 men are sexual abusers. Where do you get that statistic from? Where does that statistic even come from, first of all? Second of all, there are still men who are victims of assault. There are trans men, there are disabled men, there are black men, there's fat men. We're going to be super woke for a minute, okay? Not every man is like fucking Patrick Bateman, waiting in the bushes to skin you alive and eat your face, okay? And the whole discourse around men bad is just like straight fucking cancer. It is straight fucking cancer. We would never tolerate this with any other demographic. Okay, and it's gotten to this point where it's like, it is the ass-pat position to be like, men bad, okay? So this is kind of the criticism that is being levied here, of course, okay? And so this is, again, in response to somebody saying like, hey, it's interesting to see trans men talk about this stuff, because as somebody who has lived as a man my entire life, these are things that you all just kind of, you don't think about. You just get used to that, like, you're default bad, essentially, right? So let's see what Jake has to say in response to this, okay? So Jake says, so tired of weak-minded incels not listening to the very same women they're sad about not having a relationship with. How the fuck are you going to tell women and their collective opinion is wrong when it comes to a fucking bear versus man shit? Listen. Okay, so nowhere in here are we talking about relationships, okay? Nowhere in here are we talking about relationships. I don't know where the incel shit comes in. I think that, like, ActualJake is, honest to God, like, the soyest, most beta man that I've ever seen in my entire life. If this guy didn't have a wife, I would say that he was an incel. His game is weak. His facial hair is weak. His attitude is weak. Everything about him is just like soppy and sad. Okay, so very interesting. So I commented and I said, trans man navigate resocialization, being perceived as male, and venting about it is weak-minded insult shit. Are you for real? And he says, no, David's reaction, you foolish little boy. And so I said, David talking about how trans men show the alienation of men by offering a new perspective in the way men are treated is not insult shit. Do you honest to God think this is an appropriate way to talk to a trans guy? LMAO, what the fuck? So I am not the only person in this thread, by the way, that he lil broed. So there are multiple trans men in this thread that he lil broed or lil guy or lil dude or little dude, little duder. And he has no idea why that's like super fucking offensive to trans guys. First of all, I can grow better facial hair than you. Don't little bro me, okay? Let's start there, okay? Second of all, like, the infantilization of trans men is like a big criticism of transphobia, right? Where it's like always mentally ill women, like ooh woo, soft bean, you know, green hair, septum piercing, ooh woo. Cringe, bro. Cringe, bro. And he doesn't understand that. So I was like, you can't be fucking serious right now. So he didn't say anything to me after the fact, okay? But we have more. Worry not. Worry not. Oliver, our King Oliver, rightly asks, out of curiosity, what is your take on trans men being treated like dangerous threats due to their relationship with masculinity and manhood? Which I think is a fair question. You know, if you're willing to like take the very stunning and brave position that man bad, if you're very brave, okay? What do you think about trans men? How does that fit into that? And how do you square that circle with you treating trans men like autistic little girls every time that you talk to them? Okay? So good question. Jake says, trans men experiencing the reaction to misogyny should not, in fact, consider it a personal attack unless they're part of the problem. Who's being misogynistic here? By saying, like, dude, it sucks that I transitioned, and this is like a hard adjustment for me. You know, relearning how to navigate the world as a man, how to interact with women, how to interact with other men. Like, again, it comes down to this idea that people, specifically cis people, truly honestly think that female to male transition is like an automatic, seamless, just like bloop, and then you're automatically in the position of privilege. And there's no hardships, no issues, no learning curve, nothing, because it's the status quo. And all of these faux intellectuals have like such a lukewarm, milquetoast, surface level engagement with any kind of structures of oppression that may or may not impact trans men. It's very, very frustrating to me. So, of course, I quote retweeted this and I said, 2 points. 1, cis people misjudge transition into manhood as a seamless switch over to a position of privilege while ignoring the learning curve and disadvantages that men face. And 2, it's always the dudes that have the worst take that want to explain manhood to trans men. Honest to God, I can't think of a worse person that I would want to take advice about manhood from. Somebody who literally rolls belly up every single time a woman is like, oh my God, men bad, and you're like, yes, queen, oh yes. It's literally the Blair White meme where it's like, oh, you hate men? Me too. I am one, parentheses, ick, I know. But like, hey queen, I just wanted to like tell you that your post was super hip and cool and slay. It's like, it's so embarrassing. It's so embarrassing that you're willing to compromise like your existence and the existence of people like you and the people that you pretend to shield essentially as trans people under the bus for what? To say men bad? Like, wow, that was very brave of you. So I said, also huge irony in attributing misogyny to people who navigate and venting, who are essentially navigating and venting about being resocialized as men after living their whole lives as being women. So something again that I will overemphasize again is trans men have the highest rates of sexual violence in the trans community. So it's fair to assume that a majority of trans men who are transitioning have experienced sexual violence from a man. And they don't have this weird attitude that you seem to have. And additionally, it's really weird to pull out the misogyny card like you're just being misogynistic when it's like, bro, like I have spent a lot of my life being like a woman. You know what I mean? It's very cringe. It's very cringe to me. And there's something that is like very unfortunate and very fucked up about the way that people that like to parade themselves and give themselves ass pats for being, you know, a trans ally and very reciprocative of trans rights and everything like that, but not when it comes to trans men. And that's something that has always bothered me and something that I have talked about ad nauseum many times. And it is so true that as long as you're like a yaoi Peter Pan and you don't look too threatening and you don't have too much facial hair and you're not too masculine or you're not too tall, or God forbid that you get bottom surgery, you're like a fucking demon to these people. Okay, like you are the male apex predator that's out there ready to assault women. And evidence of that is that they're super happy to just use like mega passoid pics to be like, oh my God, do you want this in your women's restroom? Isn't this fucking horrific and terrifying? Like, oh, you want Buck Angel to pee next to your little girl? It's like your utility to like faux progressives only extends as far as you're like fuckable or you're like a yaoi soft boy. And it's just so fucking irritating from people like Jake, who have so many strong opinions on trans issues, who have so many strong opinions on trans this, that, and the other thing, doesn't know fucking anything about it. Again, comparing trans medicalism to Nazism, and then is so comfortable just being like a total fucking pick-me over like trans men venting about and talking about their issues in navigating a transition from, you know, womanhood to manhood. And like normally, like, so I usually reserve these criticisms and like this attitude for other trans people because realistically, a lot of the shit that trans guys get is unfortunately usually from the community, okay? Usually. However, I find it exceptionally irritating when it comes from like the woke token cis ally. It's like amplified. It's like an extra irritant because it's like you aren't even invested in this in any meaningful or tangible capacity. You're just here for like ass pats and good boy points to be like trans rights matter. But you're very, very content to like call out and attack trans guys that are like in a fucking FTM Reddit server being like, oh my God, like, you guys, please, I'm having a really hard time navigating socialization. It's like, it's very frustrating to me. So that's the actual Jake drama that's been going on. And it's so irritating. And he's blocked like a ton of people. He's blocked so many people over this. He was supposed to talk to Oliver, I guess, but I mean, he ended up blocking half the people that were responding to him, and I wasn't the only one. There were several trans guys and other like trans masculine people or whatever being like, dude, this is bullshit. And he was like, oh, actually, block. It's just very cringe. And again, normally, like, I don't care. I usually reserve this criticism for like intra-community shit, but there's nothing that grinds my gears more than like performative allies that really care about like trans issues and trans rights and shit like that, except for when it happens to come to trans men. It's like, oh, interesting that just flew out of the window so you could get your good boy points for, you know, being a fucking pick-me. Like, oh, I'm such a good, I'm such a good man. I hate men too. Ha ha ha. It's very irritating to me, but I would just say, like, honest to God, if you have not been completely, like, engulfed in the man bad rhetoric, I don't know where you've been. Because this isn't new in the trans community. This isn't new in, like, gendered spaces as a whole. I would say for the last, like, 10 years, it's been, you know, man bad. Like, again, hashtag kill all men was a thing for a hot minute there. It's not like, it's gotten to the point where it's like, okay, like, we fucking get it. Like, you guys are basically TERFs. Like, I really fucking get it. You know what I mean? Like, I understand. I heard ya. Don't you think trans guys can be a bit overdramatic about this? So I saw someone say being a man was so hard because they'd run into doors since people wouldn't open them for anymore. That was probably like a meme comment, I'm sure. I think that if you want to engage honestly with the content matter, there are a lot of difficulties in navigating like transition to maleness or manhood if you don't have like experience in those kinds of spaces. So for me, I worked in kitchens when I was in college. That's what I did. So I am like it's not difficult for me to like connect with other men or like have friends that are men or talk to other men or whatever, or be in male spaces. That's not difficult for me because of like the way that I was like socialized before I even transitioned. However, there are like massive discrepancies in the way that like men and women treat their friends. There's massive discrepancies in the expectations for like either physical labor or work or any of those kinds of things. In like men versus women, there's massive discrepancies in like emotional stability, emotional regulation, the way that you're expected to do so between men and women. Something else that a lot of people really don't talk about, and when they do, people laugh at them, is that it's like very isolating. Because like think about like, and this is not to bring it back to like the bathroom issue, like every single fucking trans topic ever, but like if you go to a woman's bathroom, it's like a sisterhood. in there. Every single girl that is in that bathroom with you will kill somebody for you. They will go to jail for you. Okay? If you need a tampon, some girl is like, here's a Midol, a tampon, a pad, hit my vape, like here's my phone number, you call me if you need a ride later. In the men's bathroom is not like that at all. Everybody just goes to the bathroom and minds their business, right? There is like a collective kind of protectiveness that women have towards each other that men don't have. And it's the same thing if you think about like male friendships versus female friendships. Like female friends are very happy to like sit down and talk about your day and talk about your feelings and, oh my God, what did he say? Oh my God, that's so sad. Like, oh my God, girl, like come over and hang out with me and spend time with me and blah, blah, blah. Men are usually like, bro, that sucks. Anyway, like it's very seen as like gay and like very feminine for men to be very emotionally close. It's not like that for women. And we understand all of these things to be true. Unfortunately, we're not able to offer empathy to men in these situations. So we know, again, that a big problem with toxic masculinity, and we talk so far, is toxic masculinity usually as it affects women. But let's talk about how it affects other men. It prevents men from creating meaningful connections with each other and having healthy friendships and healthy relationships with the men in their lives. It can prevent men from feeling comfortable talking about occurrences of like sexual violence, for example. Like even think of like Terry Crews coming out about how he was sexually assaulted and the response to that. Think about young boys who were assaulted by their female teachers and the response from other men overwhelmingly is, damn, I wish that was me. Or wow, what a lucky guy, right? The way that toxic masculinity and patriarchy affects women is very apparent and very true. And we talk about it a lot, which is good. We should be. But that conversation usually stops when it comes to men. We don't want to talk about how toxic masculinity and patriarchy affect men. And we're more so comfortable talking about how it affects gay men and bisexual men, men of color, things like that. But the conversation really stops when we transition to talking about men and how patriarchy and toxic masculinity and all of these preconceptions of maleness and manhood affect men negatively because people don't give a fuck. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but the 5 guys that are at the bar playing pool that you hate so like vigorously, they are not the men who built the patriarchy. The guy who was beat and abused by his girlfriend that you're laughing at on Twitter, that guy did not create the patriarchy. That guy did not create toxic masculinity, okay? It's just a very, very weird dynamic. I saw a tweet a while ago where it was like this random guy. It was like a stock photo. And it was like, this guy's ugly as fuck. Like, look at this bald ass bitch. And everybody was like, what are you doing? And it's like, well, 20 years ago, men in the tabloids, you should read how they talked about women. Like, and this guy did what in regards to that? This guy's the one that wrote the tabloids. So because men were mean to women 20 years ago in a magazine, you're going to roast the fuck out of this guy who didn't do anything, who just took a stock photo. And you think it's funny because he's bald. Like, it's very like the way that we talk about men's issues, especially in like left-leaning circles, is just, it's so surface level, and it does a disservice to men as a whole, but especially to marginalized men. And if that's something that you claim to care about, if you claim to be woke, if you claim to be progressive, if you claim to care about this, that, and the other thing, and then you turn around and you're like, well, actually, fuck men. It seems superficial. It seems performative to me. Women are just as beholden to patriarchy as men are. Women are just as much participants at times. You know, men shouldn't cry. Like, my boyfriend cried, he's such a pussy. Like, blah, blah, blah. It's not unique to that. I'm sorry, I've never liked the term ally. It's just cringy to me. It is. It's very cringe. I have a theory that a lot of AMAB non-binaries are on R because of the demonization of men on the left. I mean, that's very possible. I know it was like a meme. I know it was a joke. But where it was like, if my man ever makes lemonade, I'm leaving him. That's so gay. Why don't you just drink water? And the guy was like, fuck it, I'm non-binary. Like, what do you mean I can't have lemonade? Like, shit like that, where it's like, if you're a man and you wash your ass, you're gay. If you're a man and you wash your hands at the bathroom, that's gay. If you're a man and you do yoga, gay. If you're a man and you own a cat, gay. It's like, can you guys relax for 1 second? Like, god damn. That's the actual Jake drama, guys, and it is dog shit.